First of all, welcome everyone to Agile Coaching Roundtable. Today is the 16th session, and the topic for today is complementary practices to Scrum. So when we say the complementary practices, right, or when we talk about Scrum framework in general, so what do we refer to, or maybe what is the guideline, or how do we know what should we do and what we shouldn't? So it's the Scrum guide that tells us or teaches us what should be done in a Scrum framework, and how do we run this entire Scrum framework, right? So whatever we do in Scrum, it should be ideally in line to what is mentioned in the Scrum guide. So many of us see many other things and call it as Scrum. Or maybe many of us work on many things and interpret Scrum in our own way, or the way we understood. And I have also seen people who do follow Scrum guide, but they are following the outdated version. So latest Scrum guide is 2020. So if you want to see or have a check on your practices on Scrum practices, basically, you can always download the Scrum guide, Scrum 2020. You can Google it out and download it. It's for free. And just go through the Scrum guide, and whatever is mentioned in the Scrum guide is what we are supposed to do under the umbrella of Scrum framework. So you would be surprised to see that there are many things that we have adapted from other frameworks here and there, or maybe which come under agile ways of working but not part of Scrum. So those, I mean, you might be asking then, if we are working on something which is not mentioned in Scrum guide, or which is not part of Scrum framework, then how are we succeeding? So those are called as a complementary practices. So that we use along with Scrum to ensure the smooth sailing of the project. So if I have to give you an example, or make you understand in simple words, so I guess most of us are Indians, or all of us are Indians for that matter, in this call today. So we call potato or aloo as one such vegetable which goes well with all other vegetables, right? So even if we are short of some vegetable, we just put aloo in that, or a potato in that, or we mix potato with many other different vegetables in a combination, and we create our own recipe, or we come up with new recipe of the same vegetable, right? So similarly, that is what I'll refer Scrum to as. So Scrum framework is for me like a potato or a aloo, which we can mix with other frameworks, or we can say we can inculcate other practices into the Scrum framework, like we do for potato, and we can make our recipe successful. So that is the reason why, even if you find some practices which you would find in this course of session today, don't get surprised that how are we working successfully in our project. Then that is because it's like aloo, and it can go well with other Scrum frameworks or practices. So that is the reason. All right. I think without much ado, we will start with the presentation or topic. I'll just turn off my camera and present the screen. Let me know if you are able to see my screen. Okay. So this topic is in line to what we have covered a few sessions ago, or few sessions earlier, we had spoken about the anti-patterns of Agile or Scrum maybe. So if you have not watched that video, I will link it in the YouTube channel somewhere in the top, so you can have that video as well, so that you will get that link of all such anti-patterns or complementary practices. Anti-patterns are something different and complementary practices are something different, but I'll link that video so that you can also get an idea of what we are actually doing in Agile world or in the Scrum framework. All right, so let me just go to the presentation. All right, so the first point is, I mean, most of us would be surprised to know that epics or user stories are not part of Scrum Guide. These are not mentioned anywhere in the Scrum Guide. Epics or user stories are the complementary things that we have come up with, or the expertise of Agile have come up with, experts of Agile have come up with, but we do not have anything mentioned about epics or user stories. So this is the first point. I would just like to know from you guys how many of you know about it already, and for how many is this a surprise? Can anyone just tell me whether did you know about this earlier or it's a surprise?
Ramya, it's a surprise actually.
Okay. Yes, it is not part of the Scrum Guide. If you see and search for epics or user story, you will not find it in the Scrum Guide. So whatever we are doing, that is a complementary practice to Scrum. So having said that, without this, most of us would find it very difficult to even operate in our project, right? Because for us, we think that without epics, user stories or features, we cannot work, is what we feel, right? So uh, actually, this is not part of Scrum, but we are still implementing it successfully. So that is what complementary practices mean. All right. Second is story points or estimations for that matter. Even this is not part of Scrum Guide. Search for this. If you are still not convinced, download the Scrum Guide, search for it, search for story points or estimation. For that matter, estimation was still part of it until the last version, but in this version, they have removed estimation as well, which means that you can run your Scrum framework even without estimation process in place. You don't need to do that estimation at all. It might work for some, it might not work for some, but it is not mandatory to have estimation as per the latest Scrum Guide. So whatever you do, whether it is story point based estimation, t-shirt sizing based estimation, or hourly based estimation, nothing is part of Scrum Guide. Even if you do not do estimation at all, even that is fine. And how many of you knew this already?
I was not aware of this, Ramya. Yes, so this is also a surprise.
All right. So I think that is the, I mean, the reason why I brought up this topic today is that we should be aware of what we are doing, and whether we are doing it right or not. I mean, we should know what we are doing, right? So that is the reason why I purposely brought in this topic, so that let's see how many of us know actually what we are doing. So yes, we do have lot of debate, discussion, and all of that. But yes, this is also not part of Scrum Guide. Next is velocity. Again, this is also not part of your Scrum guide. No, if it is not part of your Scrum guide, that means it is not part of a part of your Scrum framework itself. So this is also again another complementary practice that we do, and we go crazy about velocity, and managers or leadership eat Scrum Masters or Agile coaches' brain that why has the velocity dropped, or velocity is equal to highest productivity and all of that. But to be very frank, velocity is also not part of the Scrum guide. So even this is something most of the Scrum Masters, or maybe let me put it that way, Scrum Masters who are beginners in their journey uh, feel that velocity is your ultimate measurement of progress or productivity. No, it's not the case that higher the velocity, higher is the productivity. No. So if next time, if some leader of yours or manager of yours go haywire about this velocity dropping down and all of that, you can very well explain that it should not be your ultimate measure of progress for success. And how many of you guys knew this? Anyone can confirm?
Yeah, I knew that these are not part of Scrum framework, but we follow these practices.
Great, Santosh. As I mentioned, you have become a seasoned Scrum Master now. You cannot call yourself as a beginner level. I mean, I have seen your journey. So yes, I mean, kudos to you, the way you have improved. So
Thank you.
for all the Scrum Masters or Agile coaches, what I would suggest is whenever you start working as Scrum Masters or an Agile coach, and if Scrum framework is implemented in your project, then please open up the Scrum guide and understand it properly, and understand. So we are not saying that we should not use the complementary practices, but understand what are actually part of Scrum and what are not part of Scrum. So if you get that difference, you would be in a better position to understand what is right or what is not. Complementary practices, having said that, complementary practices are not bad thing to have, but yes, you should know that difference. So yes, velocity again is not part of Scrum guide. This would be, I mean, when I got to know about this, even for this, for me also it was a surprise. Scrum Roles is not part of Scrum Guide 2020, and or maybe not part of Scrum Guide anymore. Scrum Roles is replaced by accountabilities. So we do not call Scrum roles anymore. The Scrum roles of roles such as product owner, development team, and Scrum master. These are not roles. These are called as accountabilities. And what do we and why did we get that change in 2020, or why there is a change? So what I interpreted from that is, when we say roles, right? We kind of associate with particular designation or particular person or particular responsibilities, right? And whenever we say accountabilities, it is more or less equal to ownership, right? Or taking up that accountability. So which means when the moment we say that the roles are dropped and accountabilities are introduced, that means that anyone within the context of Scrum or Agile, anyone can take up these roles or these accountabilities. Let me put it that way. So there is this argument, right? Whether a developer can become a Scrum Master, or whether an Agile project manager can become a Scrum Master. So anyone who understands this Scrum framework, understands Scrum practices, understand the accountabilities or responsibilities of these roles can take up these roles, provided they know the context of this framework, and provided they also have bandwidth to do multiple juggle between multiple responsibilities or accountabilities. So there is no more roles mentioned in Scrum Guide. Now all these roles are replaced with accountabilities. And how many of you knew this?
I just recently read this in one article, just couple of days back.
Okay. Okay, I think then I assume that everyone already knew about this. That is really a good thing. Yes, Pradeep, you were saying something.
Yeah, I was not also aware. I missed these things. So yeah, thanks for taking up.
Okay, so now that you guys know, next time when you have this argument, whether this role can be played by this person or not, whether product owner can play a role of a scrum master, whether a BA can play a role of a product owner, developer can play a role of scrum master, vice versa. So now you know that anyone can take up these accountabilities, provided they know these accountabilities very well, provided they understand the Scrum framework very well. So this is what I have interpreted, and this is what I have understood the reason for removal of the roles and introduction of accountabilities. All right. Next is definition of ready. So this is also something not part of Scrum Guide. Definition of ready is something we have introduced for our own sake so that we are clear on the prerequisites. It is not part of Scrum Guide and it was never part of Scrum Guide. Though we have definition of done, we do not have definition of ready. Why there is no definition of ready? Because when we say there should be a definition of ready, that means we are saying that we should lock all the prerequisites, or we should have the fixed prerequisites, so that the team can start work on it, right? So when we say that we should have the prerequisites in place, or all the requirements should be clear, and all the required things should be present, that means we are compromising on empiricism. That is inspect and adapt part of empiricism, because we say that our product backlog should always be emerging. That means our product backlog should welcome changes. So in that, when we say that, and we say that there should be a fixed definition of ready before we start work, then we are compromising on those principles. That is the reason why there is no definition of ready in Scrum Guide or in Scrum framework. This is something we have adapted as per our convenience, or maybe because it works well with the Scrum framework. And I know that many of you are following the definition of ready and definition of done. In fact, this is the favorite question of interviewer as well. So people ask what is definition of ready, DOD and DOR. This is what everyone asks, but there is no definition of ready or DOR as per Scrum Guide. Next is refinement meetings as Scrum event. Refinement meetings as some event, as in you guys might be knowing about refinement meetings, right? Many of us even call it as backlog refinement, or maybe backlog grooming, right? So grooming is not the correct word. So backlog refinement meetings or backlog refinement session, people assume that it is a Scrum event. Though backlog refinement is mentioned in the Scrum guide, but it is not a Scrum event. It's an ongoing activity because your product backlog has to be emerging. So this activity has to be done on a continuous manner, or it should be an ongoing activity. That is the reason why you do not have the Scrum guide does not prescribe this as a separate event, but it's a activity that we should be doing whenever we need. And I know that many of us have this as a dedicated event, so that at least we ensure that we are doing this. But it is not a event as per the Scrum guide. And anyone who didn't know about this earlier?
I know this earlier, it's a complementary event.
Okay. I think at least this session, I feel that most of the things, or maybe few of the things, we knew it. I mean, I have seen that this thing that people already confirming that they knew few of this. It's a good thing that we know what we are doing. We are in the right path. All right. Project planning. This is again a different, another topic which is most controversial or most critical part, and this is something is required by every project. Having said that, this is not part of the Scrum guide. There is nothing mentioned about project planning. If you search Scrum guide, there is a mention about product planning, but not project planning. Project planning is not a part of Scrum framework. And we know that we run behind project plans. We know that we have our project managers, delivery managers who have got this as their critical thing, and they run behind the plans. They prepare the Excels, they prepare Gantt chart and whatnot to prepare this project planning, thinking that it is part of the Scrum, but it is not part of the project, part of the Scrum guide. Why we do not have this as a Scrum guide element is as I mentioned, Scrum guide mentions about product planning. So the whole idea of doing Scrum or Agile is to deliver value. So how do we deliver value? Delivering value means delivering a product, right? So the whole idea or intention is to deliver that product or value. So you should have a plan for your product, roadmap for your product, not for your project. When we talk about project, there would be many things that gets involved, or that get mixed up. But when you talk about product, it is purely talking about delivery. That is the reason why you do not have anything about project planning. For that matter, you will not find anything about release planning also, because what Agile suggests is you should release the product increment or product to the market at the earliest. It has not given us any particular deadline or timeline for that. It says that you have to release as soon as it is developed and it has met the DOD and it is good to go. So that is the reason why you do not have a project plan, you do not have a release plan in Scrum guide. All right. This is the favorite thing of most of the Scrum masters and Agile coaches and even the project managers. Project management tools. So when we talk about project management tools, it could be anything and everything like Jira, Azure DevOps, Rally, TFS, and all of that. So nowadays, it has become a fad that people who want to get into the role of a Scrum Master or a job of a Scrum Master, what they think is, let's do this certification and let's learn a tool, uh, especially Jira or Azure DevOps. And then they think that, okay, now we are ready to get into ready to step into the shoes of a Scrum Master. And people have gone crazy even in interview. So when I say people, interviewers also are so specific. I have seen people rejecting candidates because they don't know Jira, because they don't know Azure DevOps. Though the person would have got the bestest knowledge of the Scrum framework, would have all kind of agility, behavior, and all of that. But if the person says that he or she doesn't know the tool, then he or she is rejected. I have seen this happening. But to all such people who give lot of emphasis on tool, there is no mention of any project management tool in Scrum Guide. So please do not run after your tools. Tools are something which you can learn easily, even after you get into the project or when you get into the program. So please do not rush behind the tools or spend money in learning a tool thinking that it is a mandatory thing. No, it is not mandatory for you to know Jira or Azure DevOps or Rally or TFS to be able to know Scrum framework. Okay. And the second last thing is regarding DevOps. So when we are talking about DevOps, we talk about CI/CD, right? Continuous integration and continuous deployment. So CI/CD is the integral part of this entire release management, right? When I say release management, releasing the product into the production or ship the product into the production, though it is an integral part. And nowadays people expect from Scrum Masters or Agile coaches that they should understand or know about DevOps. And when we say DevOps, automation of DevOps, I mean, to that extent, people want to have the knowledge by Scrum Masters or Agile coaches. And as I mentioned, it is the integral part of your entire journey of your product from ideation till the release of your product. But it is not a part of your Scrum framework, though it is very important. If you want to ensure a smooth delivery, or whether if you want to ensure the automated process of your continuous integration and delivery, this is very much important to know DevOps or to have this knowledge or this integrated in your project. But it's a complementary practice. It's not a part of Scrum. So again, this is for all those people who think that they want to get into a job of a Scrum Master and they do not know DevOps, and it is mentioned in JD. So please understand that it is not part of a Scrum framework. It's just a complementary practice. Last one is Scrum Ban or Scrum Ban, whatever you want to call. So it's a mixture of Scrum and Kanban. So these are two different frameworks of Agile. So Scrum, as I mentioned, it's like a potato, right? It can blend with any other vegetable. Similarly, Kanban is another framework which works well with Scrum. So Scrum can be integrated with different frameworks. Not only this, we also have many XP practices, right, or lean practices that we work with. We kind of integrate with Scrum. Lean practices such as eliminating waste, and Kanban also comes. Kanban also is built from that lean practice that eliminate waste. And XP practice such as pair programming. So all these things are part of our project, but while we do Scrum, but it is not part of Scrum Guide. So that's all I have for today. Any questions or anything that we want to discuss, or any points that we want to raise? Or Vivek, do you want to add anything? I know Vivek would be in a better position to give much more details in this. Vivek, anything from your end?
No, I think not in a much. Just to add, so I just wanted to speak about the point related to the Scrum roles. I mean, why they had taken it out and they mentioned it as an accountability in 2020. What the makers of Scrum framework they thought of. There is a huge difference between roles and accountability. So when we say something role, with that it comes a kind of a responsibility. But when we talk about an accountability, so accountability it leads to some kind of examination in terms of its success and in terms of its consequences as well. So now, if we see the Scrum Guide, what it talks about is take an example of a Scrum Master. He is accountable for establishing the Scrum as per the Scrum guideline. That is what they have mentioned. So it means that the Scrum Master needs to ensure that the success of the entire implementation or the functioning is he's the person who is accountable to see that the Scrum is followed as per the guidelines. And same way goes with the product owner as well. He is accountable to see that the product is everything revolves or everything is around the product and the product goal and the sprint goal. And the same way with the development team, so they are accountable for giving a product increment every sprint or every whichever way they are functioning. So that is where the accountability comes, and with that accountability they tend to see how successful they are, and also they tend to see what are the consequences even if they are not able to achieve what they are tend to do. And in terms of roles, it is just a responsibility. So it's not necessary. When we see it's a responsibility, people tend to overlook it. So that is the major thing that they wanted to bring in a change, moving away from a Scrum role and then getting into an accountability kind of a thing. So that is what I thought maybe I'll add up over here on the accountability part.
Okay. Anyone else would like to add on this? Any other complementary practices that you guys must be following,
So
which is
I
doing
have,
well?
yeah, I have
Yes.
a couple of more, Ramya. Maybe we could have added it. One of the best case, or one of the you have already covered, is the CI/CD. Again, it comes with when we talk about CI/CD, we also tend to see the test-driven development approach, also the business-driven development approach, the BDD format that we have. So again, this comes as a complementary practices that we tend to use in Scrum with the development team. Again, how they want to make up the development practice that they want to involve into or get involved into. One of the again XP practices that we have taken in consideration with Scrum is it's very common. It's a pair programming too. It's quite common nowadays that developers get into that kind of a development approach where they have a pair programming as well. So this is again more from an XP practice, XP core practices that we have pulled into Scrum for Scrum development as well. Yeah, that's it from my end.
Thank you, Vivek, for adding those points. Anyone would like to add any other
I
complementary
mean,
practices?
in our team, I encourage most of the pair programming when people are working on complex features, because that helps them to analyze easily to analyze to that root cause. I mean, the core of that implementation. So that's why I encourage pair programming in my teams, So they do that pair programming on a regular basis so that they will not land into some kind of issues after implementation.
Okay, and how do your team follow that? I mean, how do they collaborate, or how do they take this up in every sprint?
Every sprint, actually, when we plan for pair programming on some of the complex features where they are working, we create common stories for them so
Okay.
that they can pair program. They will work on a common story, two developers. So that's how we will create stories. That's how I encourage pair programming in the team. When we create a separate stories, when we take their effort for all the separate stories, so that pair programming will not happen as a practice. So when we have that common stories, then the pair programming will be there on the ground, or else we cannot see that pair programming, because now teams are working remotely. So if we have that way approach of having common stories, then at least they will catch up, they will pair up, and they will do that.
Yeah, this way also we are ensuring the collaboration between them.
Yes.
That's a good idea actually to have a single story work. I mean, two people work on a common story.
Yeah, even though in a tool will not accept to, I mean, in Jira especially, we have to create a custom field to add another assignee. But in general, in assignee field, it will not accept two assignees. So we are not bothered about the tool here in our program, in our project. So we are bothered more about pair programming. Even though we are assigning it to one developer, it is known that the other developer is also working on that same story.
That's a great mindset, I must say. I mean, just not giving lot of emphasis on a tool. And even if you
Yeah.
want to do that, we may also add another task for another developer, right? Even that way we can track it.
Yeah, they create subtask under that and they work. That's it. We are not much bothered about that velocity, whether we are really calculating it. It is the tool is really calculating velocity as per the capacity. So we are least bothered actually on this.
Yeah. So that's the reason why you have got the right note, and you are concentrating on other deeper
Yeah,
things other than the just surface level things.
yes. And we also have innovation sprint. I have introduced innovation sprint into my teams, project teams, where we'll have 1 week innovation sprint after every 4 sprints, where
So
we will not have any kind of work in that sprint. They just analyze the things, whatever previous things and enhancements and any new implementation they wanted to do in next sprints. So all this they'll just do analysis. Everyone coordinate each other and they'll do analysis. And if there is anything cross innovations they wanted to do, they will do that as a team.
okay, so this is adapted from SAFe framework, the
Yes,
innovation
yes,
practice.
yes, yeah,
So I know, I mean, I am taking too much time in asking the question. I know even Rohita has something to add. Just a last question, Santosh, on this innovation, right? How did you, I mean, this is, I am asking on behalf of everyone. I know that the beginner Scrum Masters or people would like to know this. How did you convince your management or leadership? Because most of the people are worried on how to convince manager. So how
yeah.
have you
I mean, so
managed to convince manager to introduce extra timeline for this innovation sprint?
yeah, same thing. I've got this question from the client manager whom I report. He asked me why the need of this innovation sprint, because it will cost. Everything is a cost for them. One day is a cost. So why we need this innovation sprint? Then I have explained him. I mean, before explaining him, before going to him, actually I made this point in a retrospective. Okay, I have put my opinion on this point in the retrospective, and I wanted to see how the reaction from the team is, initial reaction. So everyone have voted for this point. They wanted to have this innovation sprint because people will get a chance or a time to think out of box from their regular way of working. So
That's a great idea.
yeah, when I got that motivation from the team, when I've introduced this point in the retrospective, when everyone voted for this, then I got the motivation from the team. Okay, now team is with me. So team wanted this badly because there are different things happening in the project. At the end of the release, we are getting bugs and the release is being postponed because due to lack of time, we are not deep diving into analysis. All these things are happening. So I've seen this at the ground level. Then I wanted this innovation sprint to happen in the team. So when team is with me, then then I went to my client manager. Then I informed him that uh, I wanted to introduce this innovation sprint after every 4 weeks, 4 sprints. We'll start with 1 week. I said that in my previous organization, we have this innovation sprint for 2 weeks, but here we'll start it with 1 week because team will have a chance to think out of the box. We'll start with 1 week of innovation sprint. If we are not seeing any progress, anything out of, if we are not seeing any value out of this innovation sprint, then later point of time we can take a decision. It's not that we wanted to continue this as a mandate. We'll see for 2 or 3 innovation sprints. If it is not adding value for the team, then we can take a decision at that point of time. But these are the, it will add values in different dimensions. So I've shared all those dimensions over the email to him, how it will add value. So then he was convinced on this. So then we implemented this. Now we have completed 2 innovation sprints. So it is going very good in the team. Team is liking that mostly. So everyone is happy at the moment.
Great. All that matters is the happiness quotient, right? And as
Yes.
long as we are not adding work items in that innovation sprint, we are good. The moment we start bombarding team with the work items or user stories or whatever you want to call, then we are going back to the square one then.
Yes. And team is also focused on their previous sprints. When they reach that innovation sprint, team is making sure that they are completing everything which is in pending. Because
Great.
that focus has also shifted. I mean, team will carry forward the stories from one sprint to other sprint, few of the stories depending on different terms, different situations. So now they have streamlined that because when they are entering into the innovation sprint, there should be nothing in pending. So this is the one clause I kept. So now they are more focused uh, on their work, regular work, and they're also happy to get into that innovation sprint and analyze deep.
Good to know this, Santosh. That's new learning for most of us. Thank you for your inputs.
Thank you.
Rohita, would you want to add?
Thanks, Ramya. Santosh, it was very enlightening the way you introduced, your company's or your team's perspective of incorporating the good practices of other, the sibling frameworks, like how you implemented the innovation sprint of SAFe into Scrum. And I would say your team and you have been lucky that the business side and the client side have cooperated and supported on this new idea. I wish we had more such instances every now and then. Well, on that note, when the concept of peer programming was being mentioned, I wanted to share something that we tried in our team, the mentor-mentee concept. So we have pairs, we have formed pairs of mentor-mentee so that a person who is new to the technology or new to that project or new to the client and another person who has already experienced that kind of a project or a client or a team or work will work hand in hand, but the mentor will only be responsible for guiding but wouldn't be involved in a full-fledged manner, so that because again the velocity and many other things come into place when you have two resources working on the same work. But what we noticed is this helped in the team to bond better, and it was like, let's get it done. We should whatever that task was given, they took it as their baby. Now there are two people and there's a mentor, so things fastened up for us. And we kept rotating these pairs. It's not always like the same mentor, same mentee. So this way, every now and then, every person has worked with every other person, and every person has guided some of the other one or seeked guidance from someone. So we noticed that the bonding was much more stronger after introducing this concept of mentor-mentee, and that helped the team to, overall outcome of the sprint was much better, and team was more, in a stronger position that we can do it, no matter how difficult or how new the things were. So yeah, that was this thing I wanted to share.
That's a really good idea, Rohita. To just add to whatever you said, I completely agree, and that's a really good concept that you have introduced. So, on the similar lines, even I had introduced the similar concept, though we may not call it mentor mentee, but what we have done is it has come organically to us actually. So, whenever we have freshers or fresher graduates who join our team, right? So we kind of try to provide that training or maybe give them that cushion by giving such senior members umbrella, right? So that's how, I mean, exactly same what you mentioned. Though the work item would be on someone's name, but then the work
Yes.
would be done by the fresher graduates, and they would be just guiding and supporting them. The senior members would be guiding and supporting them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the, I mean, I'll catch that word of mentor mentee over here, though we are not
Yeah.
calling that.
Yes.
But then
No,
this
we
is
had some other funny name. I didn't want to mention it in the group. We used to call the Nachbaliye Jodis.
wow.
Usually the performer is the one who gets scored or evaluated. The choreographer comes, now and then when things, like work really well. So the mentor is called the choreographer here. So I didn't want to take that name in the group. So
No, no,
I
I think
just
such things, I mean, the lighter, the things that get us to a lighter note should be encouraged, right? Even within our teams, not necessary that we have to be serious all the time and we have to just
yeah.
concentrate on work and all of that. So fun at work is what we call, right? So these are the small things that we can do. And also when we want to open up team or maybe get that a team on a lighter note, we may also try, I mean, nothing related to this topic or complementary practice, but we can sometimes try talking into the local language. Talk in
Yes,
a local
yes.
language.
Yes, Ramya. I remember you mentioning this before also when you start developing a relationship at a more, very base level, it gets very stronger. I mean, they open up and they're more free and they feel more approachable.
Yes,
You're
yes.
right about that. That really works. Tried and tested.
And to be very frank, whenever I feel like, I mean, I talk to people in local language. So here it's Hindi. Not only that, I call team members like bhai log and this and that, so that they feel very friendly, right? Because otherwise, what people feel is that no, she's very senior to us. She's manager and all of that thing. We don't want that to get into the way of our relationship. That is the reason why I try all such tricks so that people feel that we are also part of them or they are part of us. So these are all
Right,
the
well,
things that.
rightly said, Ramya, rightly said. And the other thing we observed is after we made this kind of mentor-mentee thing, almost every other person got to know every other project, every other, bits and pieces of every user story. Now everybody knows like what happened in this user story, what were the roadblocks or what were the new things introduced, because some or other time you have worked with the person during that user story. So the
True.
exposure also became much wider. So knowledge wise also the team grew.
So product knowledge is getting retained with everyone and it is getting shared with everyone.
Yes,
And that is
yes.
really a critical part.
Yeah. And Ramya, thanks to this session, there has been so much of unlearning and relearning.
Oh, is it? So it's like, and one another benefit I would like to add to what Rohita mentioned about rotating this and sharing the knowledge, right? So now you may not realize the importance of the retaining the product knowledge, But trust me, whenever there is a crisis in the project or in your team, or someone is off sick or in on an unplanned leave, all such things come into play, and people willingly contribute because they have that product knowledge. Otherwise it becomes difficult for someone to train and teach the skill, or maybe in the firefighting situation, this kind of setup helps a lot in retaining the product knowledge.
Yes, Ramya, that is one more thing that became helpful because you can't predict, right? Suppose a resource suddenly falls sick. So in such situations, many times the mentor could take place of the mentee and then quickly at least hold the line until the person resumes or comes back. Or sometimes the mentor is not there, but the mentee is so confident, like, yes, I can handle this issue or this production bug without help. So we noticed that difference as well. Like I said, the knowledge grew.
True, absolutely. Anyone else would like to add? And thank you, Rohita, for adding that. Anyone else would like to add? All right, if nothing else to add, then I think we can close the call. Thank you everyone for joining the session today. And it was a great learning from you guys, and I hope it was helpful. And you would find this recording of the video on the YouTube channel, so do not forget to subscribe. Thank you so much. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you, Ramya. Thank you, team.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, Ramya. Thanks, Avik.